everybody. Welcome back to East Coast Haunts. I'm MK.
And I'm Sam.
And we are back with another episode based in Salem, Massachusetts. But before we get into that,
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about what you can expect from us in the future.
Ooh.
So exciting. So I think we're probably going to have one more episode based out of Salem, just to like wrap everything up in a nice neat little bow. But we're bringing you a very special episode next week. So next week's episode is not going to be a Salem episode, but it is going to be one that you're not going to want to miss.
It's unlike anything we've ever done before.
And, you know, it might put an answer to the lifelong question, are ghosts real?
I think that, what if you and I were the first people to truly find out that question?
I think...
I wouldn't want to be.
I actually don't even know what I would do. I would. I absolutely would.
Well,
That'd be sick.
Well, then this weekend.
Should we tell them?
Yes, we have to tell them.
Okay, so this Friday, so in 2 days from now, Sam and I and our two boyfriends are doing a paranormal investigation at one of the most haunted places in America, the Penhurst Asylum in Pennsylvania. I am so excited.
Friday night from
7 to 1 a.m.
Yeah, 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. Way past my bedtime.
Oh, it's we're gonna be exhausted by the end of this.
I will be.
Or we're gonna be scared to the point where we can't sleep.
What if I told you, last time I went home and I went into like my childhood bedroom, I grabbed the necklace that I got, I guess when I was baptized. I don't even know if it's gonna fit around my neck, but it has a cross on it, so I thought it would be good to bring.
Oh, I have mine too. We're gonna have to probably stop at some church and get holy water.
Yeah, because I just don't want to take any. I don't want to take any.
I'm not carrying any demonic energy home with me. It's just not gonna happen. But
it's gonna be super cool. I mean, we've got
we're gonna have a blast.
What are the different tools that we have?
So we have bringing with us an EMF detector, which I explained, I think last episode or two episodes ago. But it basically detects disruptions in the electromagnetic field, and it's they use it as like a way to rule out spirits. Yeah. So if you are experiencing what you deem to be paranormal activity and you get a high reading on this EMF meter device, it is a way of saying that that's probably not paranormal activity, and like a high like something like EMF is causing like hallucinations or something.
Ooh.
So it's that's interesting. And then we also have dowsing rods.
Yes.
Which are
really fun.
They're so fun to play with. You like hold them in your hands, and if they cross it means no, and if they open up it means yes.
And
it's basically like
you have to hold your hands like super still.
Yeah. It's basically like playing 20 questions with the ghost.
Yes.
Those are fun.
I'm really excited.
And then they also, at this investigation, they give you, like, other devices to use. So we're going to be having a grand old time. We're going to bring you all of our reports, any evidence that we find. I have my GoPro.
So many pictures and videos.
Oh, the GoPro. So many pictures and videos. Some of them are just going to be available to Patreons, though, so now is a good time. If you haven't already signed up for our Patreon, go ahead and sign up now. Because
do it. If you want proof that ghosts are or are not real, the only way you'll know
is if you subscribe to our Patreon. So, I mean, we don't really make the rules. We're just here to tell them. Yeah.
It's going to be really fun.
I'm very excited.
I have to pick up my outfit. I know!
I've been thinking about that
I want to impress the ghosts.
I was thinking, because then I was like, should I wear, like, jeans and, like, a jacket? Because, like, what if it's super cold? Like, it might be super cold.
Yeah, and now it's going to be, like, mid-November. Although it's been, like, really, really warm lately.
It has been.
I don't know. And inside the asylum, like...
I don't think there's heat, though.
Yeah, I'm sure there's not central
I doubt it, yeah. Especially where we're going to be. We're going to be in Mayflower Hall, which is, like, the oldest part on the asylum's grounds.
Well, also, I just realized if there's going to be ghosts, there's going to be lots of cold spots. So we definitely... You know what? Let's bring
We can bring
layers.
stuff.
We'll layer up.
We will. We'll layer up, and then we can also bring like blankets and stuff and put them in the car because
it's gonna be a long night.
It's gonna be a long night, and they said you're more than welcome to go back to your car at any point.
Okay, we're not trapped.
We're not trapped. You know, we can, if we're running, screaming, and crying out of there.
We're allowed to leave.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's gonna be super exciting. We're gonna bring you probably another 2-parter, I would think.
Yeah, I'm sure.
With the history of Penhurst Asylum, and then also the results of our paranormal investigation.
Very exciting.
So
we will
so fun.
Update you guys on that. But if you don't hear from us, it means that we were taken by the ghosts of the Penhurst Asylum. So
hopefully not. Hopefully we will be. Hopefully we'll survive to update you on whether or not ghosts are real and if we have any concrete evidence. But this is hopefully the first paranormal investigation of many on this show.
Yes.
So,
I think it will be.
You know what? Fingers crossed. Hopefully it goes well. But I think that's pretty much all I had for the future episodes.
Yeah.
I was so dramatic about it. I was like, what you can expect from us in the future is
I know, I was
the
like,
next few episodes.
she must drop some truth. I'm leaving the podcast.
I'm actually going solo.
Yeah, we're call her daddy.
Zayn Malik who?
Zayn Malik?
He's from One Direction.
Oh, I thought we were still talking about call her daddy.
Not quite.
I was I don't think he's associated with that podcast.
Okay, sorry,
don't even listen to me. I can't believe I didn't get that joke.
Yeah, that's embarrassing. But what are you gonna do about it? Anyway.
That transition.
I know.
Okay, I think you should start. So we're each doing a different haunt that's in Salem in this episode, correct?
Yeah, some of the more minor haunts in Salem, we decided that we were going to combine 2 of them into an episode. So you're going to get a BOGO deal.
A BOGO deal.
on haunted places. I can start.
Yes, I think you should start.
So
because ours are a little bit intertwined in a way. Did you notice
absolutely.
That? Yeah, pretty cool.
So my site that I'm going to be telling you about is Gallows Hill. And this was, for a very long time, believed to be the site of all the hanging executions.
Well, with a name like that.
Yeah, I mean...
Not surprising.
It really, gets down and dirty. Wait, no.
It cuts right to it gets down and dirty. It cuts right to the chase.
Right to the chase of what this place is really about. And so, as we know from previous episodes, about 19 people were hung during the Salem witch trials, and then one person was pressed to death.
Yes, Giles Corey.
Oh, is it Giles?
I think it's Giles.
Giles.
Maybe it could be. I mean, who knows? They spoke Old English back then.
They really did.
Who knows how it's pronounced?
So on the early morning of the dates of the executions, witches would be awoken from the Salem City Jail and taken out of their cells, placed in ox carts, which are exactly what you think they are. They're literally the 2-wheeled carts that you see in all those old-timey cartoons.
Yeah.
With the bars and stuff on, you know what I'm talking about. And they would roll them down what's now called Essex Street to Gallows Hill. Mm-hmm. And for a while, it was believed that they were hung from the locust trees on Gallows Hill, but this was disproven later.
A locust tree?
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but apparently their branches are not strong enough to support the weight of a human body.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at these pictures, and they're very skinny. They're skinny.
They're skinny. But so it's likely that they were hung on ladders, which I'm not quite sure how you would do that. Or
the logistics of that, yeah.
I know. Or an actual gallows.
Okay.
Gallows.
Actual gallows. No, I think you're right.
Gallows.
I think it's, yeah.
Their bodies were then thrown into a crevice because unchristian-like behavior does not warrant a Christian burial.
I'm sure that's exactly what God wanted them to do.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
So it's thought then that the families of these executed witches would then sail to Gallows Hill via canoe, take the body, and then give them a proper burial.
Okay, aw.
And we know this was the case in one specific incident, which was that of Rebecca Nurse.
Yes.
Oh, Queen, I feel bad for her.
I know. And it was her son, right, that came and
Yes.
got her body,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And now I'm going to transition into like a few decades later after the witch trials when Gallows Hill became the favorite hangout spot of one Nathaniel Hawthorne.
Here he is.
Again, he's popping back up, and this was one of his quotes about Gallows Hill. Quote, "This was the field where superstition won her darkest triumph. The dust of martyrs was beneath our feet. We stood on Gallows Hill." End quote.
That's a good quote.
Yeah.
He sounds like an author.
He sounds like Nathaniel Hawthorne.
Yeah.
But he would take his kids to Gallows Hill after he was done writing for the day, and he would educate them on those who lost their lives in the Salem witch trials.
Wow.
Which I feel like is a very noble feat, especially because, like we mentioned last episode, he was related to the hanging judge. He was his great-grandson.
Yeah, great-grandson.
Gallows Hill is kind of weird because there's no like specifically known location. It's just like a lot of different places were speculated to have been Gallows Hill.
So it's like an area is called Gallows Hill,
yes,
rather than like a singular hill.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
But like the location of Gallows Hill where the bodies were hung has been lost to time.
So it's interesting that you say that because when my family went to Salem like a year and a half ago or however long ago it was, we thought that Gallows Hill was like a singular hill, which looking back we probably should have like researched it, but we just assumed it was a place.
Yeah,
so we put it into like our Google Maps, and we were driving around for like a while and we could not find it. We were like in random like residential neighborhoods, and we were never able to find it, and we were so disappointed. So it's interesting that you say that because like, yeah, that makes sense that we couldn't find it because it's not really like one singular place.
There's no like, there's places that are now like kind of more widely accepted to be like the original Gallows Hill, which I think you're going to talk about a little bit, but there's no like Gallows Hill specific hill.
Good to know.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So for a long time, it was believed to be at the intersection of two streets, Hanson Street and South Street, and that was determined from an excerpt of a description of Gallows Hill from Reverend Charles Wentworth Upham in 1867, and he described like the grade of the site, he described the he described like the town's view of the hill and like the view of the town from the hill. And then in 1921, a historian named Sidney Purley made a discovery of a smaller hill that pretty much fit the description perfectly.
Yes.
So now, what was thought to have been Gallows Hill, or at least like somewhere near it, is a baseball diamond.
Wow.
But bone fragments have been found there, which is really interesting.
During the Little League games.
Yes. They're just running to third and they like trip over like a mandible.
They're like, sorry, Goody Proctor, I didn't see you there.
They're just using the femurs as baseball bats.
Oh God.
That's horrible.
Oh my God. It is interesting now though how Salem has become like, it's like a modern, I mean there are older parts, but for the most part it's like a modern place. Like there's a Dunkin' Donuts, there's a Walgreens, like it's like intermixed within all these like crazy historical
places.
things. Yeah.
Well, you know what else is like kind of the same way?
What?
Is like Washington D.C.
Yeah, true.
And even Philadelphia. You'll be like walking down the street and like going to like a bar with your friends, and then you look out across the street and there's Eastern State Penitentiary.
Yeah, like, this is where Benjamin Franklin signed the Declaration. And I'm like, whoa.
I mean, even in my hometown, you can be like walking down the street and you're like going to the pizza shop and you pass this plaque that's like, Washington and the Continental Army stayed here and like whatever.
That's actually pretty cool.
It is kind of neat, but it's like it's funny to see that kind of history like tucked in now into modern day life.
Yes,
and
I think a little anachronism.
Yeah, I think Salem is a very good example of that.
Yes,
but anyway, so now it's a baseball diamond, and there have been some unexplained phenomena there.
Let me hear some of them.
Well, first and foremost, this is very sad, but there's a high rate of suicide in Salem, Massachusetts, especially on this, like, near this baseball diamond.
Really?
Now. Yes.
Oh, that's really sad.
There's woods near there, and in the woods, people claim to see full-bodied apparitions. Usually, the claim is to have, like, see the witches themselves, you know, people that were hung during the trials. A lot of even visitors and, like, locals claim to hear disembodied voices screaming and crying, like, right inside the border of the trees.
Oh, wow.
But they can't see anyone.
The fact that it's located right by the trees, like, by the woods, makes it even scarier.
Yeah.
Because someone could be behind a tree, it could be, like, dark, I don't know.
But it could just be, like, I don't know.
The wind in the leaves.
And then in the neighboring houses, they report, like, knocking and thumping on the outside, like, so loud and so, like, intense that it'll shake the house. But then when they go outside, there's, like, no one anywhere around the house, which is, like, very scary.
Terrifying. Also, when you were saying that, I feel like the construction workers underneath us, do you hear that?
Yeah, our floor is shaking right now. In 1992, a bunch of different people from different churches and different denominations decided that Salem was cursed.
Okay.
And that they needed to free it of this, like, demonic energy. So they performed a laying of hands ceremony on the town water tower, and it's supposed to signify, like, spiritual healing. Which, even if nothing else, like, even if this didn't release any kind of, like, demonic energy or, like, lift a curse, it's nice that everyone in this town, like, banded together for a common cause.
No matter what their religion was or
Exactly.
their background. That is really nice, actually.
Now, Gallows Hill and that whole area is home to, I know this is going to be surprising to absolutely no one, many different ghost tours and, like, ghost hunts, almost like the one that we're going on.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. They also have an escape room called the Lost Museum, which I am nothing if not an escape room enthusiast.
You do love your escape rooms.
I've done, like, 20 plus of them. I pride myself on, like, my record. I think my record is, like, 17-3 at this point.
That's impeccable.
I'm so proud of that. I wrote my college essay on escape rooms.
This is so good.
So
creative.
Love that kind of, like, puzzle and, like, logical thinking.
It tickles the part of your brain.
It hits just
yes.
right. It's that.
Or scratches, not tickles. I was like, why doesn't that sound right?
I love escape rooms and I love trivia. Those are my two.
And escape rooms are a little bit of, like, trivia in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
So
those are, like, my two little obsessions. And then also I found, this is, like, the last little thing, they have holograms and projection shows at this, like, baseball diamond.
Okay.
And it'll make it look like ghosts are walking.
See, that's just confusing then.
I know.
Imagine being, like, an unsuspecting tourist and, like, stumbling upon that.
I think it's kind of hard because it's, like, it looked like it was maybe, like, a hologram and laser show.
Okay. Oh!
So, like,
party hardy.
So, like, you know, I don't think anyone's, like, stumbling across that and being like, it's a real ghost. But,
the
like,
ghosts are putting on a laser show.
they're manipulating the electromagnetic field.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's pretty much it for Gallows Hill.
Well, I'm glad that you went first because you're going to see a lot of overlap between Gallows Hill and what I'm talking about, which is Proctor's Ledge.
Ooh.
So, as you were saying, MK, people thought that Gallows Hill, specifically the summit, the very top of Gallows Hill, was the location of where most of the victims of the witch trial were hung back in 1692 and 93.
Mm-hmm.
There was never a marker or an official account of where exactly the execution site itself was. You know, just like how you were saying,
yes.
It's like a huge area. And this was, like, a super shameful time in the history of Salem, like you said. And they didn't want to draw any more attention to the witch trials. So there weren't really any accounts that said, like, Goody Proctor was executed at this exact spot, at these coordinates. So there was no way to know for sure. But for hundreds of years, people assumed it was on Gallows Hill.
Right.
So if we rewind about 100 years, it's 1921, okay? And there's a historian from Salem, just like you were saying, named Sidney Purley. And he believes that he has figured out the exact spot of the executions.
Ooh.
And he says it's not Gallows Hill at all. Instead, it's a nearby area at the base of the hill on Proctor's Ledge. Because of this conclusion, the city of Salem, I mean, the people aren't fully buying into it, but they do buy part of Proctor's Ledge in the 1930s, and they name it Witch Memorial Land. So...
Wait, what?
They named that, like, I know it makes it sound like Disneyland
it
or something.
Literally sounds like a theme park.
But it's like they just buy this parcel of land, and I guess they just call it Witch Memorial Land. They don't do anything with it, though.
Okay.
It's just like, I guess they just named
That's
it that.
a very well, actually,
I know, now
guess
that I'm
it's
saying
like
it out loud,
1921, there probably weren't, like, a whole lot of... Well,
Adjectives.
Disneyland wasn't around yet.
They only had so many words back then. But... So the city of Salem buys that part of Proctor's Ledge in the 1930s. They name it Witch Memorial Land. But even then, most people still assumed that the executions took place on Gallows Hill because that was the belief that everyone had held for hundreds of years.
Right.
So now we're going to fast forward to 2010. And some researchers in Salem decide that they are going to reevaluate all the evidence that they have up to this point to try to figure out once and for all the site of the executions for the witch trials. So they conclude 6 years later, after looking through all the research and evidence, that Pearlie was right. The executions actually took place on Proctor's Ledge.
Oh my gosh.
So for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, everyone thought that it took place on Gallows Hill, and it was like less than 10 years ago that this huge discovery was made. It was like a huge deal. So you might be wondering, how were these researchers able to finally figure out where the hangings took place? Like, why did it take so many hundreds of years for them to figure this out?
Yeah, why did it?
So, there are over 1,000 documents from the Salem witch trials. You know, there's like the court transcripts.
Oh, yeah.
They've got first-person, like journal entries. They've got
the primary
newspapers.
Sources.
Exactly. There's so many things. But somehow none of the accounts specify the locations of the hangings, which is weird, right?
Very strange.
I do think maybe it has something to do with, like, the shame of it. Maybe they burned them after.
They definitely did, because all the town officials, like, Samuel...
Parrish or something?
Parrish, yes. And the Putnams, like, they came out afterwards and they were like, ooh, we screwed up.
Yeah, like, Ann Putnam, like, apologized. Yeah,
God.
so I'm like, too little, too late. Jinx. So yeah, I do think they were ashamed. They probably got rid of the evidence that would have been needed to figure out exactly where the hanging area was before 2016. But it's okay. It took up to 2016. So the evidence that they used to figure out that the hangings were by Proctor's Ledge, the evidence was largely the first-hand account of neighbors who could see the hangings from their house. So neighbors people who lived near Proctor's Ledge would see the hangings going on, and they would write about it in their journals, and these researchers were able to go back and read all these entries and see where that person lived at that time.
That is so impressive.
Yes, and they were able to pinpoint exactly where this was, and when they looked over everything, they were like, oh, this guy Pearlie was right, like it's Proctor's Ledge. That's where all these hangings were taking place.
Crazy.
It's really cool, right?
It's also wild that they had such extensive land records going back that far. Like, if you don't have records, I know we just said that it was probably covered up, but if you don't have records of the, like, executions.
But it's like you have these journal entries, like
I don't even know who owned my house.
Before?
Like,
yeah,
my
no
family
idea.
bought it. Yeah.
And it's a really good point. I guess they didn't really have much else to do back then besides...
Okay, yeah, valid point, actually.
Besides, like, accuse people of witchcraft and write about land.
Fake some fits.
So another reason that researchers began to originally suspect, like, that this probably didn't happen on Gallows Hill is because Gallows Hill had a very intense slope. Like, it was a very hilly area. And it would make it very difficult for the ox carts that were carrying the accused to get up to the top. They were, like, realistically, like, it would be really hard for the ox or whoever
is pulling
this cart to actually be able to carry the accused person who, like, weighs, like, probably over 100 pounds, I would assume, up, like, a pretty vertical hill. So they were like, okay, this probably isn't realistic.
Also, like, like we mentioned, there were like 3 execution dates for like 19 people, so way more than one person was getting executed
on one day. Yeah, those oxen would
put in the work.
I know, yeah, all work, no play. Okay. So also a very interesting reason that people started to believe Gallows Hill might not be the actual execution site is because Gallows Hill was blocked from view by many people in the town. Ooh. So since these executions were more or less a form of entertainment, actually they really were like a form of entertainment back then, unfortunately.
That's crazy.
And it made sense that they would want to choose somewhere that they could hang the victims lower, somewhere more visible, somewhere where people from their houses could watch or play, which is horrible, but it seems like Proctor's Ledge was somewhere that was much more accessible to people to be able to watch it.
Do you think that there were people that like went on dates to public executions? Like, you know how we go on like movie dates?
Yes, I'm sure there was. Well,
did they even date back then, or were they just like courted, or was it just like arranged marriages?
I bet it was arranged marriages at that point, right?
Like little marriage dates.
Well, I'm sure they would bring their kids to watch it, which is like even more disturbing.
Horrible.
I know. It was like I'm like, you couldn't find anything else to do. You couldn't play with one of those wooden hoop things. You know
that Felicity had.
Yes,
the American Girl.
The American Girl doll had. Yeah, exactly.
Come on, Junior. Let's go to Witch Memorial Land.
Let's watch them hang our grandma. Anyway,
that's morbid.
That's horrible. I know, but it's like that actually is like
that's a sad reality of it. Yeah.
So you were just saying how the family of Rebecca Nurse came and got her body after she had been murdered or executed, but I mean it really was a murder.
It was a murder, yeah.
So I have a little more information about that, and this is actually another reason that people were able to start putting together that Gallows Hill wasn't the actual location of most of the killings. So Benjamin Nurse was the son of Rebecca Nurse, and he wrote in his journal or his diary that he had taken a creek from the Nurse home to the North River in order to retrieve his mother's body. You know, he had to do it under cover of night, like when no one was watching. Otherwise, he could have gotten killed for like...
That makes me so sad.
It's horrible. And people also, they thought that if you touched the body of a witch, it would like I don't know, kill you or do something bad to you. So like, that's another reason that they like unceremoniously just like dumped people, because they're like, well, we're not touching her.
They literally threw them in a crevice. Like, that's the word. Is that right?
No, I'm just kidding. But, like,
I don't know. After lethargy.
But yeah, so he went across. He went in a boat on the North River to get his mother's body, and this river brought Benjamin to the base of what he called Hanging Hill. Gallows Hill is actually quite far from the waterway that he was describing, but Proctor's Ledge is quite close to the waterway, the North River waterway. That leads people to believe that the Hanging Hill, quote unquote, that he was talking about was much more likely Proctor's Ledge.
Probably, because he's not gonna like carry his... I feel like that's a lot of, no pun intended, dead weight to carry back to your canoe. To carry your mother's dead body.
I know. Ooh. So yeah, it was definitely... These are the reasons, like... Those were all reasons that people were suspicious that maybe it wasn't... Gallows Hill wasn't what it was said to be for however many years, but it's been proven since then, which is cool.
Yeah.
So now when you visit Proctor's Ledge, you will find a memorial that is designed by landscape architect Martha Lyon. And the memorial was dedicated on the 325th anniversary of the hangings of Sarah Good, Elizabeth Howe, Susanna Martin, Rebecca Nurse, and Sarah Wilds. And that was on June 19th, 2017 was the 325-year anniversary when they dedicated the memorial.
Aww.
On the memorial, there are all 19 victims' names engraved on the wall. And actually, I was looking through, we'll post it on the Instagram, but I was looking through some like Google reviews, and there's a lot of complaints about the memorial not being like grand enough. Like, it really is unassuming and like small. Like, you would probably walk past it if you didn't realize. And not realize what it was. And people were complaining that it's in a weird spot because it's like right near a Walgreens, and it's like in a residential neighborhood. But you can't choose like where history happens.
Yeah.
You can't just like this is where the hangings actually happen. So
Yeah.
I mean, people are mad that like it's not a good enough spot, and they're like, there's no parking, but
okay,
this is where it actually happens. So it's like, what do you want them to do?
I think that if you're going on Yelp and you're posting a review of the Salem Witch Memorial where 19 people were hung, and you're complaining that there isn't enough parking and that there's not enough to see.
Yeah. It's like, you're missing the point. You're missing the point, right?
I think you need to go take a good long look in a mirror.
Touch some grass.
Maybe get offline for a little bit.
So I just thought that was so, like, as I was reading the reviews, I was like, this is painful. Yeah, like I said, the actual memorial, or the actual site of Proctor's Ledge is in a residential neighborhood, which is super interesting. Like, imagine, like, finding out that your neighborhood, somewhere in your neighborhood was, like, the site of the murder of 19 people back in the day.
I think I would be freaked out.
I know.
Because I would be scared that my house was haunted.
I would be too. So, also, if anyone is planning on visiting Proctor's Ledge, people recommend parking at the Gallows Hill Park and then walking down Gallows Hill to Proctor's Ledge. So,
let's go Gallows Hill.
Another BOGO, right? So, you might be wondering, MK, why is it called Proctor's Ledge? I personally assumed John Proctor.
Yes,
right? Because he's like one of the most famous victims of the witch trials. But apparently the answer is a little more simple. There's not really a definite reason for the name, but it's widely assumed that it's called Proctor's Ledge because the area used to be owned by people with the last name Proctor. Like, they might have been related to John Proctor, they might not have, but you know, it's just
feel
like Proctor's Ledge.
Probably they were.
Yeah. There's only so many Proctors in that little area, right? Proctor.
Well, everyone had the same names, actually, back then.
It was Proctor or Putnam or Smith or something.
Bishop.
Yeah, those are the four options.
Parish. So before you move on, I did want to just go through and list all of the people that were executed in the Salem witch trials, just as a way to, like, remember them and realize that, like, they were victims of this hysteria and give them the respect that they deserve. Yeah, exactly. So Bridget Bishop, George Burroughs, Martha Carrier, Giles Corey, Martha Corey, Lydia Dustin, Mary Easty, Anne Foster, Sarah Good, Elizabeth Howe, George Jacobs Sr., Susanna Martin, Rebecca Nurse, Sarah Osborne, Alice Parker, Mary Parker, John Proctor, Anne Putator, Wilmot Reed, Margaret Scott, Roger Toothaker, Samuel Wardwell, Sarah Wilds, and John Willard.
It sounds like a lot more. I mean, 19 is a lot, but when you actually hear the individual names, it really, like, cements the amount of people that were killed.
Really, that resonates.
And of course, so many women.
Ugh.
Horrible.
I know. It really is tragic.
And yeah, it's like Salem's fun. And it's cool and interesting to learn about, but it is, it's so
Sometimes
tragic.
You need a sobering reminder that they were actually people that were living and had their lives ended.
Trying to just live their lives, but for one reason or another.
Over what? A land dispute, probably?
Yeah, and just mass hysteria. So, now that you've read all the names of the victims of the Salem witch trials, it's unsurprising that people definitely feel somber when they visit this memorial. There's definitely, like, a sad energy surrounding it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, there are a couple of hauntings that people also claim to experience when they visit Proctor's Ledge. It's very similar to the ones that you were saying with the Gallows Hill. There's no shortage of hauntings here, considering that it served as the execution grounds for the victims of these trials.
Mm-hmm.
And to make matters even worse, which we were both discussing before, this is where the victims' bodies were dumped after they were executed. So no one received a proper burial, and there's just, really bad energy around here, of course, because horrible things happened here.
Mm-hmm.
There's a famous spirit known as the Lady in White that is sometimes seen wandering around the Proctor's Ledge area. We don't know who she is. I would assume she's probably one of the victims of the witch trials.
I would think so. wasn't in the Hawthorne Hotel, wasn't Bridget Bishop, like, also reported to be wearing white?
I believe she was, yes.
Yeah.
So maybe she makes her way around, or maybe it's someone else. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, I can't imagine that there were too many colors that existed for
That's,
women to wear back then.
True.
To be completely
well, I was
honest with
thinking
you.
maybe, like, she's in white because it was, like, showing, like, she's innocent. Like, you know
Oh.
what I mean? Like, she was killed when she was innocent. I don't know.
I kind of I like that interpretation.
Right? Yeah. I'm like, I don't think I would feel scared or anything. I would just be like, hi.
I would just feel bad.
I know.
You know?
Apparently she shows herself for a moment, but then she vanishes. So it's never, like, a prolonged appearance when she does show herself. So, unsurprisingly, there are lots of cold spots around the Proctor's Ledge area because there's probably lots of spirits. There are hovering orbs in photographs oftentimes. And people also report apparitions of different victims and disembodied whales, which is what you were saying at the baseball diamond.
I really, for a second there...
Oh, sorry, you probably thought I meant whales, like W-H-A.
Disembodied whales. I was like, what
that was
the
probably
hell?
I should have...
No, that's on me.
No, disembodied. There were no sea creatures here. And then people also sometimes see glowing lights. Ooh. And like I said, like hovering orbs, whether it's on camera, like I was saying before, or like they see them physically in person.
Ooh, interesting.
Which is pretty interesting and cool. But that's kind of pretty much it. I mean, there's no crazy like characters like how there are at like some like the hotels with like little boy ghosts and stuff. Like it's just a really sad place, and sometimes people feel certain presences.
Yeah, I'm sure that the history there, even if it's not like technically quote unquote haunted, is gonna elicit some kind of strong emotion from a lot of the people who are visiting.
Exactly. And it's definitely cool that they were able to figure out exactly where the memorial spot I mean, obviously there should be, they've got tons of memorials in Salem to the Salem witch trials, but it's interesting that they were able to pinpoint that exact spot so people can go and pay their respects.
That is nice. It is nice to have that chunk of history back, you know?
Yeah. So that is pretty much it for this episode. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Mary Kate, anything to add?
We hope that you keep listening and keep following our Instagram and our Facebook and our Twitter.
We got lots of fun stuff coming up,
We
especially
really
after
do.
this weekend.
Yes, we're going to be posting a ton about this weekend, I'm sure. We've got more Patreon episodes coming out. So if you like horror movies, please, you know,
join us.
Yeah, join our little community. We have fun.
We do have fun. We do have a pretty good time, don't we?
And, yeah. Oh, actually, one other little thing, fun little thing. Sam and I are going to be featured in a magazine.
Yes!
So it's called South Carolina Voyager. The article isn't out yet, but it should be out soon.
Very soon.
And I'm sure that when that gets published, we'll be posting
You guys
it
will know.
all over the social media sites, and we'll be plugging it in the episodes after that.
Yep.
So
keep an eye out for that.
Absolutely. And until next time,
more just two gals creeping it real.
bye.